Hello, welcome to We Can Wednesday, and we are going to whop ourselves wealthy, healthy on purpose on this We Can Wednesday day. We have been gathering the last couple Wednesdays talking about activating change and the change capability given, we have all been impacted by the pandemic of what's going on in this world, and, it is worlds apart between what's happening for some particular groups versus other groups, and some businesses versus other businesses, and entrepreneurs and stay-at-home moms and all the various audiences. And so this is about activating change. Now, we talked about change capability is impacted by three parts, and last week we talked about activating capability. And in activating capability, we look at how do we activate our capability? How do we activate our can-do attitude? As individuals, we are looking at our confidence level. And as leaders, how do we activate capability in helping people around us, our families, our kids, our volunteers, or our staff? And as organizations, how do we activate capability to stay current with all of the changes in the business market that's going on right now, or with a new CEO or a new technology? And so activating that capability comes from communicating for results, and comes from monitoring moods and mechanics. And so last week we talked about ways to activate capability. And a fast recap is sometimes understanding what's the background. So if it's a business world, what's the business reality radar? What's the politics? What's some of the political environment? What's some of the business economic outlook? What are some of the technologies out there? What's the environmental and consumer protection going on? And in a family kind of way, what technology, Facebook realities, computer games for our kids, or what social distancing is the environmental impact? What are some of the business realities in a business world? What are some of the community realities in our neighborhood and in our homes, and the stresses going on? So that's one of four ways as a quick recap. And then shining the spotlight is another way to activate capability. What's your children doing well? What are your staff doing well? What are your volunteers doing well? What's happening? What did somebody do? Like this one teacher who had a parent in her classroom, and she was doing yoga, and so she invited all of the kids to tell all of the parents, and it was so great. It got so big that the news, CTV News, shared this mom doing home yoga and share. And a lot of people are doing that online, but not everybody's on the Facebook world. And so how magical that the Toronto District School Board ended up snowballing and sharing this in a confidential way, of course. So what's current successes are going on right now, and what are everyone's strengths in your whole family, or in your whole volunteer team, in your whole paid staff team? And everybody's at a different place in their journey. And then the last piece, when we were activating capability, was what are the realities in your community or in your business? Spotlight shining, and you want to see this slower, then watch last week's, and it's on YouTube as well, how to shine the spotlight. And then also, embrace experimentation, be flexible. It's okay to fail, to try new things, and encourage meaningful involvement. And so that's last week's fast, Speedy Gonzalez recap. In activating change, you activate capability. So this week, we are communicating for results, the other side. And next week, we'll talk about monitoring mood and mechanics. So this week is communicating for results. So, when you think about when change is coming and when your heart is not in it, what are things that people do to try to get their heart into the change when you are doing that communication for change, communication for results with your kids to do their homework, or with your staff to stay motivated, or with your business to shift with the current market changing, right? Right now, it's really challenging to not get that heart in it. And so some of the things that you do when your heart's not in it is often sharing like the why the change is necessary. And if your heart's not in it, you get others involved to communicate within the team, right? You don't communicate it alone. And you gather more information about what's going on. And so when you are communicating for results, you're doing two things. You're providing information for others, and you're also encouraging candid feedback. So specifically focusing on giving information to others to get the heart involved so that people understand the why in the background is also looking at your own heart. And remember that no leader is immune to misgivings about change, right? We all have misgivings when it comes to change. Is it the right change? Is it the right time for change? I'm not feeling motivated or not, right? As an example. And so the key is to find out what is holding you back as the one that's communicating for results in your family or in your business or in your teams. What's holding you back so you can get some steps to get more engaged and impact others' engagement. And so what differences are there between your comfort zone that might work for you and the comfort zone of possibly people in your team? You know, today I've had a couple of webinars, and you know, the leaders have gone through all sorts of information and understanding the why behind the strategic change, but now their team is just hearing it for the first time. And so their readiness for all these ideas and all this extra work, as it appears, you know, their readiness is at a different level of a comfort zone. And so what is this implication for you as a leader when your comfort zone is different than their comfort zone? It's important to recognize what others need. And so how do you do that? Is put yourself in their shoes. Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You know, who's going to be affected? What's in it for me? What's in it for them? Where will it be rolled out? You know, what change is necessary? Why is the change necessary? You know, when will the change occur? How will the change be rolled out? You know, and these are the business contexts, but this works in your family too. Like, how come our family rules have changed and I'm not allowed this much, or I'm allowed extra hours online right now? And so just putting yourself in others' shoes. And so clearly it comes to communicating with others about change when one size doesn't fit all. What my nephew needs at 10 is going to be very different than what my teenager niece needs in a family communication. And my 30-year veteran is going to be different than a new employee when this big COVID change has just impacted everybody. So mass customization is sort of like the mantra, be consistent, be the same, but that mass customization doesn't work to capture the hearts and the imagination. And so you need to tailor the needs to the family member or to the needs of the people in your group, right down to the preferences of that specific individual. And so there's so much noise and pressure right now. Capturing the heart is going to be critical to the masses. And so usually what employees or family members need when it's change related is how come and the what of the change. And once your team or your family begins to understand, then you can move on to the what and move on to those details of the rollout. But until your heart's ready, until the why is understood, you're not going to get there. And so you choose to communicate this information over time, maybe in one conversation, or maybe it's several conversations over time. And so it's really important. We've been expanding the awareness of the business realities, right? It comes back to the half-truths. The very first week before I got into talking about activating change is I set everybody up with the half-truths of change, right? We talked about a clear business case causes broad support for change. That's only a half-truth. Unless the heart is in it, the business case is going to be ignored. And so let's turn to the why and the what of your change, right? Even if you've developed the absolute perfect change message about how come it's required, once is never enough. People need to hear it multiple times in your family, in your teams. And so it's super important. And you also need different media that appeal to the different learning styles of people. So maybe it's a team meeting or a family meeting. Maybe it's intranet. Maybe it's a conference call. Maybe it's a paper memo. And I'm suggesting all of these. Maybe it's a fact sheet. Maybe it's a text message. Maybe it's a video. Maybe it's trinkets and hats and pens with a message. I say it's all of those. The more media methods and the more times you communicate the why, how come behind it, the more you're going to engage the heart. And so communicating for results is provide information to others as well as encourage candid feedback. 2 parts for communicating for results. So the second part for communicating for results is that candid. Encouraging feedback from your team is really important to understand what is the shared understanding of your team or your family. What's changing? Why is it important? It tells you what they know and how they interpreted it. That's different than why you're doing the change. Why are you doing the change? You're sharing. What they know, they're sharing. How they interpret what they heard from you, that refines your plans. So ask yourself, what does candid mean to you? Honest, direct is candid. And so we said honest dialogue is what candidity is. But what does your family tell you? What does your life partner tell you? Or what do your teams tell you? It's not a time for blaming. It's not a time for denying accountability. It's not a time for disrespect. Candid is honest, straightforward, but it's not blaming and disrespectful. And so people often hesitate to share what's on their mind. How come? Right? It's awkward to give feedback to a parent, to a boss, to their supervisor. You don't want to look like you don't understand. You might even fear the repercussions of sharing your candid feedback. You want to seem like a team player, but you're afraid, so you avoid the conflict and you avoid hurting feelings. And I think that's pointless because then change isn't going to happen. So for all these reasons, it takes time and effort and even a little bit more candor to get big impact results. So to promote candor, invite feedback repeatedly, day to day, at meetings, at conversations, constantly, continuously invite that feedback. And keep your promises. Do what you say you will do. Show up on Weekend Wednesday every week is what I promised. So hopefully that's building trust with all of you. And finally, let people know what you've done in response to their feedback. Or explain the business reasons why not. So here is a Speedy Gonzalez lesson of an all-day workshop that I have tried to pull out just the important key nuggets without experiential exercises. Thank you for joining Weekend Wednesday with Wealthy Healthy on Purpose. Please join this group, Wealthy Healthy on Purpose. Please follow, like Unstoppable Tracy on YouTube, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, Unstoppable Tracy, everywhere, Unstoppable Tracy. Thank you for this Weekend Wednesday and whopping into activating change. We will activate change by activating capability last week. Today we communicated for results by providing information others need, as well as encouraging candid feedback. Next week, we're going to do the last corner of the triangle in activating change, and that is monitor the mechanics and the mood. So join me next Wednesday for monitoring mechanics and mood. Thank you so much. Bye, everybody.